Senator Young.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to pull a bit on that thread about the importance of having ambassadors in place. It's unbecoming of a great power. It is indeed embarrassing to our professionals like Secretary Campbell and to members of Congress alike, and it's injurious to our foreign policy. So if we can't somehow persuade colleagues to operate within the existing rules, maybe we need to change the rules. It's something that's been discussed for a long period of time. I know a number of my colleagues on the committee agree, but I just encourage them and others who are listening to let's give this another run as we approach year's end and see if we can improve this situation moving forward. Mr. Secretary, I'm so grateful for your service and your accessibility. Thank you for all you're doing and all you've done to serve our country. The PRC continues to be defined as a developing country, defined by international financial institutions, development banks. This hampers our ability to get China to pay its fair share of contributions to multilateral institutions. It ensures their access to generous loans and financial terms from these self-same institutions that they shouldn't have. And it presents a normative challenge. They refuse to demonstrate the leadership that a global power would. So they want all the benefits of being a global power, but they don't want to put forward the same sort of work and resources that we would expect of a global power. So what do we do about this? How are we trying to deal with the hypocrisy of they're not really a developing country, but they claim that status? And are there steps that we can take to here in Congress or within the administration that have not yet been exploited to strip them of this developing nation status?
So first of all, before I answer that question, I do want to thank you and commend you, Senator Young. I would say the most important thing that we've been able to do is to understand that the high ground, the strategic high ground that is necessary for us to continue to command is in technology. And I don't think we would be able to do this. You taught me a lot. I've tried to extend that not only what we're doing domestically, but internationally with partners. It is a hugely consequential area that we need to do more on, and I just thank you for your leadership on this. You said it perfectly. I would say this: you can't have it both ways. You can't demand to be a great power and then in certain circumstances say, oh, I'm just a developing country. We have sought to reform certain issues in the multilateral development banks and the international financial institutions. We need more help along the road. My biggest concern, Senator, is not that China's not providing resources globally. They do, but they're outside of these institutions, actually. They're doing it in bilateral contexts where they can extract a quid pro quo. They're doing it outside of the appropriate mechanisms that allow for a degree of transparency, which we think are essential. And so I think just simply making the case more in international financial institutions about the challenges this presents. That's the World Bank, that's the EBRD, that's the Asian Development Bank. This is an essential fight that we need to, frankly, raise the awareness on more substantially.
Well, we have a role to play there, as do, of course, all our diplomats. So we'll continue to focus on this important area. With respect to technology, most especially our movement towards green energy, we need critical minerals. I'm glad it's something you brought up in your opening comments. If we can't get them through our deep sea beds by ratifying the laws, the Sea Treaty, which looks to be a challenge based on current circumstances, then we should look to Africa, which is where the preponderance of these minerals are. How can we help foster the public-private partnerships, bringing American capital and expertise and standards to Africa so that we can keep exploiting, so that we can exploring where we can get these minerals?
So if you look at like a balance sheet of the top 40 trace elements and minerals that are necessary for batteries or for semiconductors, the vast lion's share of those supplies are now controlled by China. And we start behind the 8 ball. We've got to, we were late understanding that while we were playing a globalized game, the Chinese were basically cornering markets. Now we've responded with a number of arrangements with specific countries. We have a critical minerals agreement with Japan, with Australia. We've worked with other countries in Africa. The Lubita Corridor will help us in this context. I would simply say this is an area, these mines are often dirty, the processing is challenging. It's going to take resourcing. We have to do this with allies and partners more. And frankly, we've got to scour the globe. And it won't be just Africa, Senator. It's Mongolia.
Yes.
It's countries in Southeast Asia. And it will be our intent to continue to prosecute this.
One last point I think it's important to make, because I did not support the Inflation Reduction Act, but the reason we pursued the CHIPS and Science Act, and a handful of Republican colleagues joined me on that effort, was in part for purposes of economic resiliency. The Inflation Reduction Act took the opposite approach. We've become far more dependent on these upstream critical inputs, and that was never, I think, seriously wrestled with before we took this approach to mitigating climate change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.